welcome to the Malika Writes channel. Today we shall be discussing the characters of Aragorn, Boromir and Faramir from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So these characters are some of our main characters. They're some of the main heroes in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And today I wanted to discuss them in the view of what they represent to the modern man. I think we have reached a point in our history where we need to look at stories to kind of define what certain things are. I think we've reached a point where all the old rules of what certain concepts are seem to be, diving out of the window. So I think this is a chance to look back at the core values of certain traits or certain sort of personas and see where we can go from there. And I think the best place to do it is in the arts, hence Dark Academia. So let us look first at the character of Faramir. Now he is the youngest of Denethor's children. He is the younger brother of Boromir, who actually joins the Fellowship, which helps Frodo get the ring to Mordor. So Faramir is captain of Gondor after his brother Boromir dies. And his heart is not in war. He doesn't like the violence, but he does what needs to be done because it is his duty. He's very duty driven, and even though he doesn't necessarily like violence and doesn't necessarily like war, he will still do his duty. And his whole premise is that he wants to prove his quality. He wants to step out of the shadow of his elder brother, who he thinks his father loves more. And to be honest, his father does kind of love his older brother more. So he's in this really difficult place where he knows his worth, but he hasn't had a chance to prove it. He hasn't had a chance to show his quality. And in the series, he has a very important choice to make. The ring comes to him when he captures Samwise Gamgee and Frodo Baggins as they go on their way to Mordor to destroy the One Ring of Power. And the only thing he has to do is kind of take the ring from Frodo, and the whole quest would fail, and Sauron, the great evil, would take over the world. But he doesn't. He makes the decision not to take the ring, and that in a way is proving his quality, which is really important in his story. And I think how this relates to modern sort of masculinity is that we look at masculinity not as this oppressive force, but it's a driving force, and when used for good can produce people who will go against the grain just for the sake of doing the right thing. So there's this whole big deal about Faramir he would have had to forfeit his life if he let the ring go, but he lets it go anyway. He's willing to do the right thing even if it costs him his life. So then we look at Boromir, his elder brother, and we have this almost this next stage of masculinity, and this is where the person embodies the archetype of the hero. Boromir is the captain of Gondor before he goes and joins the Fellowship. He is a character that is very passionate. He's kind to those in his charge. He becomes very fast friends with Merry and Pippin, the two other hobbits on this journey. And he cares for them. He's very caring, even though he's quite arrogant. But that arrogance comes from his purpose. He has this very grand view of what he would like the future to be, and his eyes are fixed on it. So everything he does should be viewed through the perspective that he is striving towards a goal. He has a purpose. And I think that is very important for men. It's important for everyone, but for men it's very important to be grounded in having a purpose, in having a goal, in having some kind of objective. And Boromir has an objective. He shows his quality through his care of others, through being kind to those in his charge, through protecting them, even if it costs him his life. He ends up dying as a result of protecting Merry and Pippin. But he also has his insecurities. In the film, we see him open up to Aragorn, so he's not afraid of his emotions. And we really see this close relationship between him and Aragorn. At first, he kind of disrespects Aragorn during the council meeting where the fellowship members are decided, but he learns to respect him and therefore is open to him. And I think that really opens up an interesting conversation about male vulnerability. Do we ask men to just be vulnerable and open about their emotions, or do we allow them to do it in a way that best suits them? Which, according to this, to the way Boromir behaves, is to do it to be vulnerable with someone that they respect, to be vulnerable with someone that they look up to and admire. So the next character that I wanted to look at, and actually the person who becomes the king of Gondor, is Aragorn. And he is, in many ways, the sort of perfect man. He is masculine without being oppressive. He is caring, poetic, has a very good and deep understanding of the world and the way it works, and of the sort of mythos and the mythos of the land. He understands the workings of the world and the sort of spiritual world, if we had to take into account his knowledge of the elves and the Valar and the things beyond. So we see someone who is very knowledgeable, but someone who is humble, because he doesn't strive to take the ring for himself. A common misconception with Aragorn is that he had no sort of ambition. He did. In the books, he always wanted to reclaim the throne of Gondor, because that was the only way to marry Arwen, who is the daughter of Elrond, the Lord of Rivendell, which is where the council meeting takes place to decide the fellowship and who will take the ring to Mordor. Aragorn is not only brave, but in the books it makes a point to say, and even in the films, in the extended edition, it makes the point to say that Aragorn is not fair. Merry comments on his grim appearance, but his deeds and his manners are very valiant, and he is noble indeed, and noble in the way that he treats other people and the way that he carries himself. So there is this emphasis on not always being deceived by someone who looks good, but by looking at their deeds. Are their deeds valiant? And I think that's a very important message for any time, but more so for today's sort of era, where we're really looking to almost redefine certain terms. And I think that's a good place to start. These characters give us a good foundation for what masculinity should be, which is being valiant, being a protector, caring for, in being a protector, not just providing for those in your charge, but caring for those in your charge as well, which is not just the basics of providing, but the whole essence of masculinity. And this is according to not just Lord of the Rings, but other books as well that sort of show us what positive male role models look like. The whole essence of masculinity can be summed up in one word, which is sacrifice. All heroes sort of become the hero when they are willing to lay down their life for others. And I think that is the essence of masculinity. The whole thing of being a protector, of being a provider, it is putting others before yourself. It's the sacrifice of stepping back. If we look at Aragorn, he is the hero technically of his own story. We have this whole subplot about Aragorn wanting to become the king of Gondor so that he can claim the hand of Arwen. However, in the Lord of the Rings main story, Frodo Baggins is the hero. The little hobbit is the hero of this tale. And Aragorn's ego does not, it does not come in the way of allowing him to play the side character in that particular tale. He is the hero of his own tale, but he also features in another tale, which is Frodo's tale, the main sort of story that we're reading or watching if you're watching the movies. And his ego doesn't allow him to. His ego is not so inflated that he cannot take the back seat, and I think that's very important in when we're trying to look at masculinity. It's not so much a redefinition of masculinity. It's kind of rediscovering what it actually is. It's stripping back the layers of what society has told us it is, and actually looking at why it's there and why we need it. So I want to thank you for watching this video. I don't want to ramble on too much. I hope I've given you something to think about. And I will be posting a video on Tuesday where I will be going to Fortnum and Mason's to talk about tea and what the best places to get tea. I hope you tune in for that. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thank you very much for watching. This has been the Malika Writes.